Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I have a very exciting interview for you today with Adam Lane Smith, who is an attachment specialist and recently was in hot water for a very spicy tweet. Adam, did you want to say hi before I get into your whole controversy?
Oh, absolutely. I'm Adam Lane Smith. It is nice to meet you guys. I'm an attachment specialist. I help people learn to give and receive love with each other. If you want to know any more, check out my website, adamlanesmith.com.
Perfect. Yeah. So there's a Twitter account called Bad Medical Takes, and they tweet out things that they presume to be horrible advice for relationships, psychology, your medical needs. And you got featured on this account with a tweet saying, male depression is nearly always a result of learned helplessness, but health providers treat it like female depression and try to make men feel loved instead of powerful. And funny enough, the Bad Medical Takes tweet was retweeted by Based Medical Takes, which is where I found this. And my first reaction, as I said in my response, was that this seemed kind of sexist. Like, don't men want to feel loved too? Isn't that their primary need like women? Then I started showing a few men in my life, and they all were like, that is so on point. I've never seen it described so well. And I just had this moment of like, what? Really? And I have all of these responses of people saying, men need purpose. Purpose is direction. It's not necessarily about being made to feel powerful, feeling productive, useful, having a sense of control of our lives. I had like hundreds of responses of people saying, not gonna lie, I've been going through it lately and will attest to the triggers having more to do with things being outside my control than feeling unloved. Can you just elaborate a bit more on what made you come to this conclusion that seems to have so many men relating to it?
Absolutely. So there's three key pieces when I look at this. There's three key pieces I look at. And just for a little context, I was a licensed psychotherapist for years before I retired so I could do coaching now internationally. And there's three key pieces that we need to be aware of that make men a little bit different. Men, our brains, they're a little weird. They go backwards to observe and then forward to act, backwards and forward. When you see a male brain, a brain scan of how it moves, it is backward and forward. Mostly it wears a rut doing that. So it must observe a problem and then act upon a problem. That is when the male brain is most effective. And this is why men in conversations will cut you off and try to throw solutions at you instead of listening to you. They actually think that's what you want from them. So the male brain loves to observe and act, and it feels good when it does that. And the reason it feels good is number two, the male brain has more what's called vasopressin receptors. Vasopressin is a hormone released when you overcome challenges together, or you overcome stress together, you accomplish something. Anytime that you could high five after accomplishing something as a team, that's vasopressin. And we are supposed to be getting this with people that we solve problems with, and it makes men feel really good. This is what bonds men most effectively in romantic relationships and friendships. The military knows this, so they use this so that the military buddies will stay together and be best friends until they're 95 years old. That's why you see those old guys hugging after all those years.
Mm-hmm.
It's vasopressin bonding. And men bond best with other humans when we face challenges and overcome them. And our brains feel best when we observe a problem and then we can act upon it. And if we can't observe a problem and then act upon it, the brain gets stuck and stuck and stuck and stuck. And then we cannot really bond with other people very effectively either. So then the man becomes really isolated, shut down. He's feeling completely powerless. Impotent is a word we used to use. We don't use that much anymore. But then comes problem number three, and this is where I really come in, is attachment. Attachment's the way that we learn from our parents that if we can give and receive love with people, if we're going to be acted with cooperatively or acted upon, so we have to earn approval, we're going to be abandoned, we're going to get hurt, we have to avoid and withdraw, how we control other people in our relationships or stay safe. When we have healthy, secure attachment, our brain says, okay, I've observed a problem. I can't act upon it. I need to talk with someone and get data from someone who has solved this problem. And then they'll help me and we'll figure it out and we'll solve it. And then we will vasopressin bond as we solve the problem. And I will feel powerful and we will have accomplished something together. When you have attachment issues, and the research on this is really rough, it shows that maybe up to even 50% of adult Americans may have attachment issues. When the brain says that, it says, I cannot open up and reveal my weakness to anybody else. I can't cooperate with other people. I can't collaborate. I can't get data. They will see that there's something wrong with me. They'll either abandon me or they'll exploit me for it. So I can't trust anyone. I need to figure this out alone, but I can't. The brain just circles and circles and gets stuck and stays stuck and then can't bond with people. And this is why when I come in my coaching and I work on them with attachment, I teach them to give and receive love with other people. But that doesn't really solve the depression. It boosts them and they feel better. But when it really helps them is when they use that skill and they bond with other people and they learn that they can overcome challenges together. And then they see that forward movement and then they solve the problems in their life and they solve them with the people in their life. That's when they vasopress and bond and they overcome all of those difficult emotions. That's when it really helps, is when the men have power, not power to hurt people, but power to make forward movement happen, power to change their environment, power to control their life. That's when men get better.
That word power in your tweet was the one thing I definitely wanted to talk about, is like what kind of power. And I think there's been this perception that male success or male power should always take the form of wealth, sexual power, societal, political power, when I think of masculinity, at least healthy masculinity, it comes in the form of being the power to protect your family, to provide for your family, to give wisdom to your community, to have that level of respect with the people in your own life, not necessarily the entire world.
Yes, absolutely. Power. And I got flack for that. You're right. Power was the one word a lot of people hit on.
Mm-hmm.
Power in this case, a man working himself 16 hours a day to feed his kids, that is power to feed his children and take care of his family. When I did psychotherapy, I worked with kids as young as 12 and boys. I work with women too, but boys as young as 12 who had no purpose in their life, no driving factor. There was no reason in their eyes for them to be alive. So their power was meaningless because they had nothing to apply it to. I've worked with men in their 60s and 70s who are now on the other end looking at a legacy, and they have felt powerless in that moment. I have to show them how to use their legacy years to build the legacy they've wanted. And they have power. Legacy comes from human impacts. It's a record of your human impacts that continues on past when you die. What human beings are changed positively from you. That's a legacy. That's what men are looking for, not the power to domineer and control. That's like you had identified. That's weak masculinity. That's broken, toxic masculinity. Healthy masculinity uses power to protect, to uplift, to encourage, to grow. That's what I mean.
Now, one interesting dynamic I've observed is there kind of used to be this default of all men having purpose, especially in the age where women couldn't work. It's like, no matter what, we had to rely on men. Like, it doesn't matter what level of status you have in society, we're not going to be able to provide for ourselves, so we need you. And then there was the reverse, which is women on a sexual level, they want to feel like they are the only ones desired. They want to feel secure, and men had to kind of impress women, take care of them if they wanted to get sex in their lives. Now, there's two of these things that have been taken away from being a necessity. Porn has kind of made it so that, well, men don't necessarily need women anymore. I can go look somewhere else. I can go on Tinder, do this. And then women can be in the workforce, so I don't really need a man anymore. I can go support myself. And on one hand, I can see how that makes people feel less secure in their relationships because there's less of a definitive need from each other. But on the other hand, I think it's probably healthy that we have to provide more to a relationship than just this kind of, you have to be together or else you're not going to get sex or support. And I think humans trying to learn how to add more or be those things for each other in a fulfilling enough way that all of the temptations of the world don't matter anymore is posing a very difficult task for this generation.
It is. And there's a third component to that we can add, because providing for your family has a purpose beyond just keeping them alive. And sex and all the relationship piece has a part as well, this is what I teach people when they come in my coaching, is you are supposed to be building, a couple is supposed to be building some sort of legacy together. If you're going to commit, you're not just committing to each other to give each other good feelings until one of you dies, and then that one has won because now the other one has to continue on lonely. That's not what commitment means. A committed relationship, like a marriage, has a purpose, whether that is children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, an inheritance for them and stability for them. That's a legacy that a couple can build together. A nonprofit organization, anything that they build that has a human impact, that's the purpose of the relationship. And so many people, when they have attachment issues, they are focused on the wrong side of the brain. They are chronically emotionally agitated on the right side of the brain. So they are not taking a long-term view of legacy. It is, how do I get into a relationship so I feel less pain because I'm lonely? And then how do I keep this person because I'm going to lose the relationship? So it's just an endless process of trying to maximize pleasure and minimize pain for the rest of their life. And that's all they think about in the relationship. And when men are there, they don't know how to attract a healthy, emotionally secure, successful woman because she doesn't want to connect with a guy who is just trying to maximize pleasure and minimize pain for the rest of his life. And that needs to happen for him to have that purpose and legacy. This is one thing I teach men and women when they come in is legacy is what it means. And that's where you two can come together like this and build purpose. What legacy are you trying to create as a couple? When I teach that, both men and women get better. And that's really where the crux of it lies, because everything else is supposed to support that.
For sure. One thing I find interesting when I speak to women about the idea, kind of this rise of demand for more traditional relationships, like where the man is more the leader in the relationship and the woman is more, support, follower, not less important, but just takes a different role, right? And one thing I've learned from a lot of women in my life, and definitely like my own experience, is femininity and that sort of relationship can only thrive within security. Why would a woman give up her job, her power, her ability to take care of herself and put it in your hands if she doesn't feel like you're stable and secure? She can't. Femininity cannot thrive without a sense of this man has it together. He is not going to leave me. He is going to protect my family. Like you will not get feminine women, guys, unless you have this secure attachment.
Correct. 100%. Forbes ran not too long ago. They ran an interesting article that said we went out and polled thousands of career women in corporate America, and especially upper levels, and 84% of them said they wished their husband made enough for them to stay home, and up to 2/3 of them said they actively resented their husband for not making enough for them to be able to stay home. And that women, I don't want to say this carefully. Women want to be with men that they respect. And when women are with a man that they truly respect, he is stable, he is trustworthy, he is consistent, he is predictable based on his principles and values, predictable in a good way. When she is with a man like that, who also respects her, who gives her input on the decisions, doesn't make them her decision like she's his mom, but values her input and her wisdom before decisions are made, most women are very content to turn some of that power and control over to that man because she trusts and respects him so thoroughly based on his past behaviors. And he must have secure attachment to be able to make that happen. You're exactly right.
And I will say as well, like, I think there has to be an acknowledgement for the people out there that it is a hard economy to live on just one income. And sometimes women do have to work. That's just the reality. But that doesn't necessarily mean a woman can't give up a lot of that, not give up rather, but put a lot of their trust and the leadership in a relationship to a man, trusting that he has her best interest at heart, right? So that can still happen even in a relationship where the woman is working and the man is working at the same time, in my opinion. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So historically, what a lot of couples did when we look at traditional systems, historically, the working class, the man worked, but the woman usually ran some sort of side business out of the home, whether that was washing laundry, sewing, dyeing clothes, whatever it was. Women did tend to work, but they would run a small home business that was tied into the home finances. There's nothing wrong with that. If that's a structure the system can build, fantastic. And the research shows if you have a parent at home, your kids' attachment does better. So again, with the legacy focus, if one of you is better at staying at home, that may be a good system for a couple.
One thing I was thinking of that I'm seeing appear more and more often is like that historical dynamic where men were always needed in order to support the family because women couldn't work, and women were always needed for sex because they didn't have this boom of porn and Tinder and everything. There are a lot of people who seem to have an entitlement to these things. They feel entitled to respect, or they feel entitled to being desired. Like, you've got some feminists who are like, I don't care how much I fly off the handle, I am entitled to feeling consistently loved from someone who is entirely emotionally stable, even if I don't give that to a relationship. Or you've got these guys who are like, manosphere, I want to sleep with every woman in the world, but I want to settle down with that trad wife who's going to perfectly respect me, even if I don't respect women at all, you know? What is this coming from, this entitlement, without actually building these qualities.
I've got you. I've got you. So the research shows that anywhere from, well, up to 25% of adult Americans actually have something called avoidant attachment style. So
Mm.
anxious attachment style is the belief that there's something wrong with you on the inside that everyone can see, and it makes people reject and abandon you. So you have to hide it, become approval seeking. The opposite of that is avoidant attachment style. If there is something wrong with everybody else, no one is capable of acting in good faith upon you. You have to either withdraw and pull away from them,
Mm.
or you have to act upon them to please them, but not so that you don't get abandoned. You please them enough that you push their buttons, then they will act appropriately. It is very much like playing a video game. It's your brain is activating the tool use area and moving other people like objects. And that is what it is in those relationships, people jump in and they say, you are an object. Their brain says, you are an object. Your purpose is to give me pleasure and to give me no pain. So you
Mm.
need to do X, Y, and Z. And my purpose is just to sit here and do the minimum to get those things from you for the rest of our relationship. And eventually one of us will die, and hopefully it's me, and then I will win because I don't have to find somebody else. That's the avoidant attachment style. That's what that is. It's not viewing other people as human beings in the relationships with you. It's not a full sociopath where they're hurting people or exploiting people, but their brain simply says, I cannot cooperate with other people, so I need to maximize what I get from them while minimizing what I'm putting out. And that's defining a lot of hookup culture, Tinder. That's defining a lot of that. Is the anxious people are chasing for approval, and the avoidant people are exploiting that approval and pulling it in
Mm.
without ever fully connecting to them. They maximize what they get and they minimize what they put out. That's defining our culture right now.
This plays in very well to a video that is hopefully going to be published right before this one on why I think artificial intelligence is a threat to our relationships, because of people seeing that individual as just a pleasure object. And if you can get that from someone who can literally be programmed to not cause you any pain at all and literally react to all of your pleasure sensors perfectly, I mean, will the novelty of real relationships actually live on in an environment where we demand perfection?
You know what's interesting with that? That is a very good question. What's interesting with that is an AI, if it was sufficiently programmed, could give you serotonin. It could give you oxytocin. Oxytocin is the hormone released in the absence of stress through calm bonding and nurturing
Mm.
sex, which then could release GABA. You could release dopamine, but an AI would struggle in many cases to help you release vasopressin to solve problems together as a team. And a lot of
Mm.
men, during the sexual experience at the end, women tip, if they've climaxed, women, I should preface with that, women tend to release a flood of oxytocin, which bonds them to their partner in a healthy relationship. And men, it doesn't seem to work quite that way at the end of the experience. Men get a flood of like dopamine and other things. So his brain says, wow, that was fun. This was like my favorite hamburger. I will come back here when I'm hungry again. But if she helps him during that experience release vasopressin, his brain cherishes her, values her as
Mm.
this loving companion who is trustworthy. And then his brain starts to prioritize oxytocin bonding with her as well, which the female biology is primed for oxytocin. So I could see AI perhaps connecting to a lot of women, but I would think it would be difficult long term for men with vasopressin, especially because the research shows that the longevity of relationships is based on renewing your vasopressin every so often. That's what gives you a second honeymoon, a third honeymoon, a fourth honeymoon, and it prevents the men from spiraling off during a crisis and finding someone else and having an affair. It's renewing the vasopressin bonding. Again, men bond best when they're solving challenges. If the AI could solve challenges with the guy, if it was like a buddy cop movie kind of thing, then maybe, but that really is what the role that it would have to take to really fulfill those requirements. Otherwise, men would get really bored.
Super interesting. Very interesting. One thing I definitely wanted to ask you is why you think so many people reject your approach to helping male depression.
The biggest criticism I get is, why are you gendering depression? Is what I usually
Mm.
get. Why are you gendering depression? We should be working together on this. And why are you dividing people? And my answer to that, much like your comment when it was, well, at first I thought this was kind of sexist. Yes, many people do. Like, well, this seems weird. Like, why would you? But if you stop and you see that research and you think about it, and then you look at the male suicide rate, men commit suicide and complete it at almost 4 times as often as women do. So the
Mm.
suicide rate is gendered. It is gendered. Um, I lost a family member myself a few years back to male depression and male suicide. Huge problem that we need to address. It's an epidemic that nobody wants to talk about because it's uncomfortable and it exposes a gender gap in the suicide thing. It's not a gender gap we necessarily want to close in the wrong way. We want to close it the right way and diminish it. A lot of men don't go get therapy either, because a lot of therapy often is talk based, or that's what men perceive. And talk based is processing, which can help you relieve some of the stress and achieve some oxytocin bonding with your therapist. But it's not really vasopressin bonding. Coaching is a lot more vasopressin bonding, and very solution focused therapy can be. But men resist getting help because they don't think anyone will help them, especially if they have attachment issues. When they go, they are often met with processing and oxytocin based instead of vasopressin and solution based. And then they don't even know how to apply those things. And that's really the big problem. Depression is gendered. We need to work on that and just tweak the things so that we save lives. If we can do this, then people won't die. That's why I gender the depression argument.
That's fantastic. I really appreciate what you're doing. I think it's very much needed in a world where the UN are tweeting figures like this is a disaster, 10% of journalists dying are women, and ignore the 90%, right? It's a huge problem there, huge problem there. And I know you offer courses, and you've also got your own YouTube account where you talk about this stuff. Where can people find you and connect with you?
Yeah, thank you. My website is the best place, adamlanesmith.com. I've got an attachment bootcamp video course on there. And for everybody listening, if you use code Lauren50, I'll give you 50% off my attachment bootcamp course that shows you how to solve your attachment issues in 10 clear steps. I have in there how men bond. I also have a whole separate module on how women bond, how to include that together as a couple, how to bond that way, how to overcome insecurity and fears, and get your needs met without feeling embarrassed. I have that on there, the attachment bootcamp course. That's on my website. I'm also on YouTube here at Adam Lane Smith. You can find all my videos on here. I've got a ton of video guides. Weirdly, Lauren, I got started on TikTok. I did not think that I would blow up. I got 170,000 followers in 8 weeks talking about
Wow.
attachment. Yes, I know, which is
That's
amazing.
TikTok has way less censorship than like YouTube and Facebook, I find lately. I guess surprising move by China.
All I do is I go live and I post videos and I talk about attachment and healthy relationships and why hookup culture is broken and like porn is bad for your relationships and how to give and receive love. And I have 500 over 500 million views on my personal click, my hashtag alone. Younger audiences are eating this up. So if anyone out there feels like, well, the world's getting worse, it's never going to get better. No, the younger audiences, they are eating up the words about attachment and building healthy, secure relationships. So there is your, what is it, the white pill? There is your white pill for the day. The younger audiences are eating it up and they are getting better.
No, I really seriously, I really appreciate this because I see so much relationship advice on the internet every single day, TikTok, this, that, or the other. And I don't know if you guys can't tell what stuff is good and bad. Some people can't, certainly not young people. You just have advice that, women are the entire problem of every relationship crisis. Men are the entire problem of every relationship crisis. And just finding someone who can talk about both men and women like they're human beings that are complex is it's a treat in this current media world.
You will like this then. So people always look at me for my male focused tweets and they say, oh, you must just work with men. My female audience, my audience on TikTok, I'm at Attachment Bro. And I thought, oh, bros, they'll love me. No, it's 83% female is my audience over there.
Wow.
83% women. So they take the message and then they show it to their male partners or their dads or their brothers, and it helps them articulate their needs to the men in their lives and help the men in their lives. So it's an amazing resource.
Yeah, if women seem like an enigma to you, men, we feel the same way. We feel the same way about you. We're trying to figure out how you work. We don't want to hurt you. Well, most women, unless they're like sociopathic, like it's just there's so much confusion that needs some bridging in language and understanding there. But anyways, Adam, I appreciate you. Everyone, if you want to go check out his content, his courses, I've got all the links down below in the description. And I will see you all next time.